Hollywood is being rebuilt by artists not afraid to disrupt the status quo, telling fresh stories and bringing to life characters who until now have been confined to the margins. This is Emerging Hollywood. All right, today I'm sitting down with Emmy-nominated actor and also writer and director O-T, and I'm not pronouncing your last name.
Now, we did practice of it, man.
I'm not doing it.
Fagbenle. You got
Okay.
it. Go on, give it. Fagbenle.
Fagbenle.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
the
good.
closest I'm gonna say.
Fagbenle.
Right. Now, what is OT short for?
So, my full name is Olatunde Olateju Olalorun Fagbenle. So it's a Yoruba name.
Wow.
Named by my grandfather and my father, and it's kind of like in Yoruba culture, you're often like named according to the circumstances of your birth, or you're named as like a prophecy into what your life may become.
Wow. So your folks growing up called you OT.
Yeah, I was always called OT. It was
Okay.
kind of like, it wasn't even to make my name easier. I don't know. They were just kind of creative people, and so I just got called OT, and it kind of stuck.
You're biracial, born in London, but you spent time in Nigeria and Spain. How did that shape your childhood, all those different cultures?
Yeah, it was really interesting because we just moved around. I have a very nomadic family, so we just moved around a lot when I was a kid. And to some extent, like we lived poor in Nigeria and we lived quite affluently in Nigeria. And then I was the only black kid in the school in Spain and the only white kid in the school in Nigeria.
Wow.
And so all of those kind of, shaped like, there's a real diversity the way I'm viewed in this world and in the different ways people live too.
So you're considered white in Nigeria?
Basically, yeah. I mean, it would be very common for, like, I go down to the basketball court. Even now, I went to the basketball court last time I was in Nigeria, and they were like, pick the white guy, he's good. And I had one friend of mine, a new friend I met on the basketball court, tell me, listen, just because God made your skin white, it doesn't mean you're not a Nigerian. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I said, in England, if I was walking down the street, someone would see me and you walking together and be like, look at those two black guys.
Absolutely.
He said, what, you and me? Look at your hair. Look at your skin. You're white.
Wow. They don't know black people. Of course, they got to know black people come in so many different shades.
Yeah, but it's an interesting construct if you're half black, half white. What are the things that make you white or black from someone's perspective? I think from an American perspective, where you have the one drop rule, well, if you got one drop, then the slightest bit of tan on you, the slightest fullness of your lips, well, then you're black. But from a Nigerian perspective, for some Nigerians, that is, if you have any shade of white in you, that makes you Oyinbo, you're a foreigner. And
wow.
so yeah, it was a really interesting perspective shift to go. And then, of course, I go to South Africa, and I'm colored there. Black people are like, there's colored people like, that's black people. It's a whole separate thing. So
wow.
Yeah. It's just
so in South Africa, colored and black, the two different things? In America, colored is a black person.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, especially in Cape Town, you have the Cape Coloreds, and they are multi-generation mixed race people, biracial people, my great-great-grandfather, and it caused a lot of division. I mean, this is some of the way that apartheid South Africa rules for so long as, divide and conquer. But anyway, the point is that, whether I'm in America, I'm African-American, if I go to South Africa, I'm colored, if I'm in Nigeria, I'm Oyinbo, it kind of goes, okay, so my racial identity is really informed by who's looking at me.
Ooh. How did that impact you as a kid?
I think it gave me a sense that who I was had to come from inside of me. I mean, I was, I guess you could say, relatively, I was really into Black history as a young person, as a teenager. My sister kind of taught me about Angela Davis, Soledad Brother, Black Panthers, Malcolm X, Nation. And so I guess I was really enthused Egyptian history, really interested in that. But I think at the same time, I was aware of the construct of race and the way that other people, especially people who want to oppress us, will use that to help define me. And it was important that I also help define myself.
Were you afraid of anything growing up?
I mean, yeah. I mean, like as a kid, you're afraid of lots of things. I mean, I guess I faced a fair amount of rejection, especially in my early years, feeling, like I said, to some extent in Nigeria, being somewhat of an outcast, and in Spain as well, So I think that sense of social rejection and not fitting in was something that I faced.
When did you get a sense of self-validation? Like when you realized you didn't need the opinions of other people to feel comfortable with yourself?
I mean, listen, give me a call when I've got there, please, because it's something I'm still working on, brother.
No, for real.
For real.
For real. I call it getting to a place of worthy.
worthy.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm 43. I didn't get there till I was like 40.
You know, it's a constant process. It kind of like, you know, they say, oh, be present, be in the now, right? Well, you have to practice that every day. You know,
right.
it's not something you achieve and then, okay, for the rest of the time, I'm now in the now. And so, sure, you know, I'm consciously trying to live in gratitude, trying to live in the present, and trying to know my self-worth in a way that's disconnected from my achievements, disconnected from, you know, press and success or an award
That's right.
or a TV show or something
right.
like that. And it's hard because as an artist, you define yourself so much by your art. And so it's a weird juxtaposition.
What kind of emotional support did you get from your parents?
You know, I mean, I was predominantly brought up by my mom, and she is a very powerful, strong woman. She was very supportive, but at the same time, watching her deal with adversity and the strength and courage that she did that with, that was very informative, you know.
Did your parents' relationship as a child affect your relationships as an adult?
Oh yeah, I mean, and who they are as people as well. And you know, I got to say, both my mom and dad, they're really inspirational, charismatic people. As I got older, I was kind of realizing, oh, that's my mom in me in this relationship, and that's my dad in me. And then trying to have an objective view of like, okay, well, who do I want to be? What are the best parts of them I can take, and what are the parts of me that I want to develop?
You know, you got into music and acting at a young age. You played the saxophone, performed Shakespeare. What would you say was your first introduction to the arts?
I wanted to play the saxophone. At the end of the Muppet Show, there's the guy who goes ball on the big saxophone. I was like, that's me at 10 years old. That's me, bro. The school I was at in Spain, they had a jazz band, and they were like, all right, so we're gonna do this tour, and we need an extra saxophone player. So before I learned any scales, before I learned anything, the first thing I learned to play was Glenn Miller. But they needed me to play yesterday, so we didn't have time to do the basics. So I never really learned to read music. So what I would do is I'd sit there with my sax and I'd wait till the other people picked up their saxophones and okay, it's time to play, and I'd play the thing that I'd learned. So what happened was I learned to play intuitively and by ear more than I did by the notes, and to some extent, I think that's some of how I do my acting now.
Did you know when you were young that this would become your career?
No, I wanted to be a basketball player. I wasn't tall enough or frankly good enough, although it breaks my heart to say it. But I was better at acting than I really was at anything else.
When did you realize that?
I think about 18, I applied to drama school, and RADA, the drama school I went to, they take 16 boys, 16 girls, and they auditioned 2,000 people. So and by the way, back then, they were taking one black person a year. So when I auditioned, everyone was like, yo, don't expect to get in, you know, they don't really take many brothers, and they don't take many people anyway. And so when I got in, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm in a circle.
Special in some way, right?
Well, you said it, not me.
You and your siblings, were y'all competitive growing up?
Growing up, we're competitive now. Like, in fact, to be honest, I was just having a debate. We have a little debate group with two of my brothers about LeBron's season.
Well, there's nothing to debate. I mean, especially if the debate is Michael Jordan versus LeBron James, because Michael Jordan never missed the playoffs with the Chicago Bulls. Just want to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, how did he do with the Wizards?
That doesn't count.
I mean, you know, listen, we don't have to get into a LeBron debate. I just want to say that seeing him at 37 or whatever, averaging 30 points a game.
Phenomenal.
It's unbelievable.
Phenomenal.
You know, even without comparison, we could just go, wow, what?
But you know the crazy part, not to get too off track, we would give LeBron all the credit if you didn't compare him to MJ. MJ's in a league of his own. Like, let Michael be Michael.
Gosh,
let LeBron be LeBron.
Listen, this is my theory on it. That there's just multiple GOATs. There's like 4 GOATs. For me, there's 4 GOATs. It's Kareem, Wilt, Jordan, and LeBron. And so, how am I going to compare Wilt to Jordan? How can I do that? They played in different eras. It's completely different. So, different positions. Anyway.
I think it's multiple GOATs, but it's one God.
And that's Charlamagne.
No, that's Michael Jordan. Let's talk about the Handmaid's Tale.
Let's talk about it.
You know, you've been acting a long time, but the role that introduced a lot of people, you know, to you and got you an Emmy nomination was Luke on The Handmaid's Tale. So take us back to 2016 when you landed the role. Did it feel special, and did you know it would become as culturally significant as it did?
You know, it sounds really bad to say it, but I didn't. You know, like I got the part, and honestly, I was like, well, it's on Hulu. What's a Hulu? You know, like.
Y'all put Hulu on the map though.
Right, it did,
Yeah.
but that's to remember. Back then, when I got offered the part, it wasn't on a map.
Yeah.
It wasn't even. There was no books. There was no paper.
Absolutely.
It was on nothing.
Absolutely.
And so when I got offered the part, I was like, okay, nice, we'll do a little thing. And so when I got there, and I was working with this great director, Reed Morano, and the writing was amazing, and I'm looking at my fellow cast members like, you're on fire, you're on fire, you're on fire. It wasn't until halfway through it, I'm like, this might be something, but it's still on a Hulu. And what's a Hulu? So it wasn't till it comes out, and it's the same time that Trump got elected, and the same time a lot of movement, then it caught fire. And then I was like, oh, this is gonna be a real thing. This is a real
Absolutely. Absolutely. It became one of those things where people, especially during the Trump era, like they're gonna take us back to the Handmaid's Tale.
thing. Right.
You know, and the show does tackle like a lot of ugliness, right? So does shooting that dark material ever weigh on you mentally?
You know what's so weird and counterintuitive to a lot of people is that it's a fun set. Like there is so much. It's like, you know, they say the humor in the mortuary or something like that. It's like almost in response to the darkness of the text. We laugh a lot when we're not shooting. But yeah, for sure. There are some times where scenes can get very emotional. Like ultimately, I have to imagine that my wife and child have been torn away from me. But I don't think I would say I take it home with me. It can be tiring, it can be exhausting. But I think for a lot of actors, it can be a kind of a therapy in itself.
We see a lot of toxic men on the show, and you've talked a lot about toxic masculinity. So what are your thoughts on the root of that, and how do we start repairing it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I would say at first, I'm still on a journey. You know, I'm still discovering myself, and all the time I'm lucky enough to have these wonderful women in my life that say, hey, yo, see that thing over there? You gotta watch that. Hey, you see that over there? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Oh yeah, maybe
That's very important what you said.
You know?
No, what you just said is very important. Having those women tapping on the shoulder, but also
Being able to hear it.
Hear them, absolutely.
Because we don't want to change, and nobody wants to hear that they've been insensitive. And so, to be honest, you know, that's all I got to say. Like, I'm still in process, and part of what's helped me along this process is people who are generous enough to say, hey, yo, this is that, that's that. Think about this. Try not to be like that. And trying to have the humility to be like, maybe they have a perspective that I can't see. Maybe I have a perspective that I don't understand because I haven't had their lived experience. And so, yeah.
I like hearing you say that you're still on your journey, you know, because I feel like we say that, we say, oh, healing is not linear. Like it sounds good to say, but it's
Right.
really not. And if you're really doing the work, the more you peel back layers, the more things you realize you got to heal from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also empathize with. I think it's so easy. Like I was brought up when I was 14, 15, 16, we listened to music, ragga music, boom, bye, bye, in a batty boy head.
Yeah.
Bueno, promote and ask them, and them happy dead.
Yeah.
Like, that is so toxic, and we didn't even hear it.
But that beat though.
Yeah, I mean, this is the
That
problem.
melody
Like,
is so
like
fire.
having to throw away such you know tracks and bass lines and stuff. But it didn't even occur, and it had to take someone to be like, hey, will you listen to their lyrics? How would you feel if those lyrics were put by in the black man's head? You know.
But I didn't know what it was back then.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't know till I got older and somebody told me what that meant. I'm like, oh,
Right,
okay.
right.
Or you hear about it, oh, you know they banned that song, and
Yeah,
I'm like, why?
right,
And then
what's
you
wrong
hear
with
why,
it?
you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
So like, so many of us are on a journey, and yeah, I don't know. I just try and face it with as much humility as I can.
The Handmaid's Tale also portrays like extreme, perverse examples of gender roles. Like at this point in society, are we past traditional gender roles?
Oh, I mean, I think we're in a whole. We're even beyond that. We're redefining gender as it is, and it's really complicated. And again, it's something that I'm just like, okay, teach me, because I'm learning about it. I guess the question is like, what is the purpose of a label? To say someone's male or someone's black or white, or what, like, what's the purpose of it? And I feel like sometimes that reductionism is used to try and push people into a small box, whereas I don't know. I just think the difference within a gender is often more than between genders. And it's like, who is this person in front of me? And if someone can really tell me a good reason that we're generalizing about a group, okay, cool, let's use it. But otherwise, I'm resistant a bit to labels.
Being black and British, you know, people complain about British actors taking American roles. Is that a criticism you've encountered? And what do you say to that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's interesting to some extent, like immigration and what it means, because it's not the first time people have said, hey, why are these people coming over here and taking our jobs? That phrase is time immemorial. I think particularly for African-American actors like we're talking about African-American people who have been so disenfranchised in their own country, so many opportunities which they're qualified for and ready for, they're not. I think it can sting extra hard for some of those people to go, hey, like I'm good enough to do that job. Why not? I think it's complicated. I think it's a job by job thing. When I see Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out, I don't know. I just think he was amazing. I'm like, I don't know who else I want to do that part. He was amazing. What am I gonna do? Like, and so I don't know. I'm really sympathetic to it.
The funny part is most of the time you don't even realize it until you hear them talk regular. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know Idris Elba spoke like that for years. Like I'm like, oh, I didn't know.
Right.
Is there any privilege to being British?
I guess so. You know, and I think it's hard to see one's privilege sometimes, and it's hard to also understand what are the things which are making a difference. I would say I'm so proud of the other British actors and actresses that I see out here doing their thing. I mean, I think there's some incredible talent. Now, and I don't know which one of them I can point to and go, oh, well, if you weren't British, you wouldn't be here. Because, to be honest, they're doing a business. So I don't know, but possibly.
You're playing a pretty big American figure, President Barack Obama, on the upcoming Showtime series, The First Lady. What did that mean to you?
Boy, it's hard to encapsulate, really. I mean, there's so many different levels. It means a lot to me. I mean, to say, hey, look, playing opposite Queen Viola Davis is not, is a big part, of it, because one of the things I love doing in shows is working with people who inspire me. She definitely inspires me. And also, President Barack was someone who is, maybe the most popular American president of all time. We're talking about, and not only, internationally, particularly, and not only that, one of the most filmed presidents of all time, because he came of age during the internet era in a way that, very few presidents did. We had access to President Barack like we haven't had access to any other president before,
That's right.
And so that's a lot of pressure in itself. And, as a person, I was very inspired by him as well. I went to his inauguration. Even though I'm a Brit, I flew into Washington. I was on the sidelines. I was like seeing the Beatles. Yeah.
I wonder why I never thought about that. How did the world see Barack? Was that inspiring?
So inspiring. And I inspiring to the whole world, but particularly to the Black diaspora, I think. It was someone who just stood for just that intellectual capacity, that political capacity, that leadership qualities, that family man, that when, we know this guy exists in our community. The media often doesn't show us that guy, but we know he exists. And now we have him on one of the biggest stages. And it was just very ratifying.
We're here at Dumbo House in Brooklyn, where you say you've done a lot of writing, including the series Max on Hulu, which you also direct and star in. So tell us about that and what drives you to want to wear those different hats.
Yeah, I was living just round here, so that's why, and it's really nice here. But I think we've really taken some great steps forward in having diversity in front of the camera. And when I say diversity, what I mean is breaking down the barriers that are stopping excellent people from doing amazing work and giving us great artistry. I think behind the camera, there's still so much work to do. If you look at from writers to executive producers to directors, we're not represented proportionally to our demographics. And so I have in me a director, I have in me a writer, but I think I'm also spurred on by the sense of responsibility I have to kind of leverage my situation right now to increase our representation there. And whether that means how I do my hiring practices or work with my brother, Luti, who owns maybe the most successful Black television production company in the UK, us having our voice out there, telling our stories out there, I just think it's an important part of what I want to contribute to the world.
You were also working on Max when you got the opportunity to be in Black Widow. I'm a big Marvel guy. Okay, but I heard there was almost a scheduling conflict.
Yeah, well, so the funny thing is I was writing for Max, and we knew when it was going to be. He was going to shoot in September, and then I got this call. Basically, I put myself on tape for the Marvel thing, and they said, yeah, boom, you know what? You got the part. So I was like, dope, when is it? September. I was like, are they going to be able to move the dates? They were like, no, you got to choose. Are you going to do Max, which is your heart, where you're writing, directing, and starring, writing the music for, or you're going to get to do this Marvel thing? And, you know, I got a team, agents and all that. And basically most of them were like, well, we know what you're going to do. You're going to do the Marvel thing, right? Because it's Marvel. Don't be stupid. I was like, no. Like, I can't not do this. Like I said, it's like, I feel like it's part of my legacy to do this. So everyone gets stressed, you know, because it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do both. Anyway,
It happened.
God intervened, and Handmaids moved a little bit. Marvel moved a little bit. Channel 4, who are sponsoring Max, moved a little bit, and I managed to do everything. But I was kind of like going back and forth. I was shooting Marvel one day, directing the next day, coming back. It was kind of crazy.
Did I hear that you had a love scene with Black Widow?
Well, I mean, not quite a lot. There was a scene.
Okay.
Basically, well, the scene with me and Black Widow on a bear when she first comes
Scarlett
into the
Johansson.
trailer. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. She first comes in. She originally would lay next to me, and then we had this kind of like conversation with each other, which I said to them because when they were like, okay, we're gonna do some deleted scenes, you know. I was like, put that deleted. That's a nice scene.
Yeah.
Me and ScarJo.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? Wait, holding back on me. Anyway, they held back. So.
Got you. Now let's talk mental health a little bit, man. When in your life did you consciously begin paying attention to your mental health?
Ooh, I mean, I think in my early 20s, I had a kind of period where I started having panic attacks, and I think my mental health started affecting my physical health as well. And I kind of went, hey, look, if you don't intervene right now, things are going to really spiral out of control.
Absolutely.
And so I took myself away. I went to Ireland, actually. I'm part Irish. I went to my grandma's place in Ireland. She lives in the countryside. And I just like, I sat down, I read a bunch of books on meditation, books on depression, books on stress. And I started to develop for myself a framework for which I can like look after my own mental health.
Like what helped you the most?
But there were like 5 things which I would like, okay, these are the things which help me stay sane. And if ever I'm not feeling sane, I gotta check, am I doing these 5 things? One was like meditation. Or prayer. The other one is exercise. Basketball is part of my mental health. That's my therapy for me. Doing good for others, like
service
seeing
to others.
and doing service. Connecting with family, whether that's your chosen family, your biological family, your logical family, like being part of community. Because I think sometimes when we get depressed, we don't want to be connecting with people. We don't want to see people, but it's so, I think, important to like connect with those people who love you, right? And then 5th is gratitude.
Gratitude.
You know, and like I try and maintain a gratitude practice every morning. Obviously, sometimes I fail at doing it, but I try and do it every morning just to kind of like recenter myself, program my neural pathways to look out for the good, to look out for the things which are blessings.
Nah, gratitude is always my attitude. Like, thank you. I thank you when I wake up. Like, even if I'm just driving home and when I pull in my driveway, thank you for helping me to get home safely. Like, it's just a constant thank you to God.
You're lucky. You're lucky to have that intuition, that instinct, because I think it's so easy to go, oh, this thing's going wrong, and look at the world and what's going on in the news and and you can just get into a mindset of like how messed up things are.
Yeah.
And I think we have to have a consciousness about the things that still need work, but if we don't have that gratitude, I think we could just collapse underneath the pressure of it.
You got several projects rolling out this year. New season of Handmaid's Tale, The First Lady. You're also in the upcoming We Crashed, and you work with amazing actresses across all of those series. Of course, Viola Davis, who I love. I'm from South Carolina, so she's a South Carolina legend. Legend, period. Elizabeth Moss, Anne Hathaway. Like, what is something you've learned from each of them?
You know, when dealing with artists of that level, and we're just talking like the best of the best, their gender is like irrelevant. That's almost irrelevant to their excellent artistry. I mean, Viola has this kind of passion and like connection to the source in a way. Like when I'm around her, there's this energy, and she cares so much about people and community, and she's so well read and so understanding of politics. Anne was very generous to me. We only had a couple of scenes together, and she was just like straight away, do you know where to eat in New York? Can I tell you the right places? And she was just so down to earth. I was like, this big star's really taking her time out. And then Lizzie Moss is just a savant of television. She kind of understands the whole process of writing, directing. She understands it from all angles in a way that I'm watching her like, wow, you really know. Actually, the other thing I want to say about Queen Viola, is her and her husband's production company, Juvie Productions. That's goals for me. That's exactly what I'm talking about, representation behind the camera, about being in places of power and telling stories which are meaningful to us, but meaningful to everybody. That was really inspiring.
Absolutely. Is there something you haven't tried that you'd like to?
The thing that I'm most inspired by at the moment is to try and tell some African stories. What's the biggest African television show that you've watched? What's the biggest African movie you've watched? And we're talking about a continent which United States of America could fit 2.5 times into Africa. We've got 1 billion plus people. You know, like it's bursting with stories, and yet we've not had them. I mean, well, it's part of what I'm developing at the moment. I got a number of projects which I'm working with two of my brothers, Daps, whose music video he does Migos, and you know he's an incredible director, and Luti. So we're independently developing different stories for telling African stories.
All right, my final 2 questions. If you could go back, what would you say to your 18-year-old self?
One thing that my dad taught me is there is no wisdom greater than kindness. And
That's a bar.
it's a big bar. And I think I heard it, but I think I could have learned to just meditate on that more, just to try and, I don't know if you can be too kind. I don't know if you can be too caring, and just find that, you know, I think as a young person, just out there and just doing your thing, and you can be quite, you know, maybe I was a bit self-centered, and just, I guess, yeah, having as much kindness and empathy as possible, I think.
What would you say to a 60-year-old OT?
I would say fast often and exercise, please. I want another 50.
Absolutely. My man O-T Fagbenle.
Yeah, pretty good.
I appreciate
Glad
you,
you
brother.
tried.